going to get going in about 3 minutes. If you want to grab a chair, grab a glass of wine, get comfy. can see everyone's enjoying themselves. So nice to see a great crowd out tonight. If you want to grab a seat, we're going to get started. really great to see some of you sticking around from the Blue Met press conference. We're now beginning the Montreal Review of Books spring issue launch. So nice to see so many of you here. I'm Rebecca West, publisher of the Montreal Review of Books and executive director of our parent organization, the Association of English Language Publishers of Quebec. Thank you so much to the Blue Metropolis team for partnering with us on this event. It's a real honor. As publisher of the MRB, and on a more personal note, as a white settler with ancestral roots in the Netherlands and in Ireland, I'd like to acknowledge that we're gathered in a place known as Jojage in the Kanien'kehá:ka language and Muniang in the language of the Anishinaabe. Our association represents a diverse community who live and work on the territories of many Indigenous peoples, including the Kanien'kehá:ka, Abenaki, Anishinaabe, and Huron-Wendat. As a publication celebrating local books, we acknowledge the first storytellers of our lands. There's still lots of chairs here in the front, as usual, if anyone wants to grab a seat. I'd like to thank our amazing MRB team for putting this great issue together, our editor, Malcolm Fraser, associate editor, Athena Khalid, associate publisher, Emma Talaro, designer, David Leblanc, national ad sales manager, Michael Weil, tuning in online, I hope, our reviewers and illustrators, as well as our board of directors. This is sadly Athena and Emma's last issue. I just want to, they're moving on to other exciting projects. It's been so much fun working together on these last few issues, and we'll miss you and wish you the best. We're also really happy to welcome Selena Wiener to the team, who will be working with us on our summer issue. I'd also like to express gratitude to our funders, the Government of Canada's Canada Book Fund, the Canada Council for the Arts, and SODEC. We have a really lovely event lined up for you this evening with readings by 4 writers featured in the spring issue: Tanya Standish McIntyre, Tracey Lindeman, Gabrielle Boulianne-Tremblay, and Eli Tareq El Bechelany-Lynch. Andreas from Paragraph and Peter are here, so please stop by and pick up a copy of the books if you haven't already. The authors will be available for signings after the readings. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming David Bradford. David is an acclaimed poet, programmer at large, and strategic consultant with Blue Metropolis, who will say a few words on behalf of the festival. Welcome, David.
Thanks, Rebecca. When Blue Met has been doing things with Montreal Review of Book and ILAC in particular for a number of years now. And when this opportunity came up of maybe kind of sharing the space, it seemed like it was worth it. It took a lot of emailing, but we got there. And now we're here in the space together, and it's a really nice moment. As a writer, I would say we're really lucky as Montrealers to have an actual involved local review that cares about local authors, but also cares obviously about writing in Quebec, English writing in Quebec in particular. Yesterday in the, I don't want to say aftermath, but like in the fray of angry poets on Twitter thinking about the Griffin Poetry Prize and the latest developments, someone was talking about how newspapers 20 years ago used to have 15, 20-page book sections, and books of poetry would get reviewed, and that is just not the reality anymore. So a publication like this one that makes an effort to have such an incredible reach and to support local authors is really important to our community in Montreal. Even if sometimes it can feel like they're in the administrative background, moments like this remind us that they're really a part of the community in an important way. So thank you for being here tonight, and looking forward to some readings, and that's it. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Malcolm Fraser. I'm the editor of this publication, the Montreal Review of Books. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. I've had a few people mention to me tonight that, with certain local newspapers who shall remain unnamed, cutting down on their books coverage, that we may be, one of the only, certainly print publications left in town. I know there's a lot of, there's a healthy community out there of a lot of coverage of local books, but all I can say is that we appreciate it and we're honored because we love local books and we like to cover them. What can we say? I want to give a shout out to a few notable writers who are here tonight from the MRB. Robin Fadden, who wrote the Poetry Roundup, is here. Megan Thurston wrote the Kids Roundup. Roxanne Houdon, all the way from Fogo Island, a special appearance. We got Zoe Shaw making her MRB debut in these pages. Lots of other people who I'm probably forgetting, but you know, we're running a tight ship here, people. So I'm going to get things going without any further ado and introduce our first reader, Tanya Standish McIntyre. Can you please come to the makeshift stage? Tanya is a poet and visual artist born and presently living in Quebec's Eastern Townships, winner of the 2022 Carmen Zalewski Poetry Contest, as well as the Dr. William Henry Drummond Contest. Her first book is The House You Were Born In, published in the Hugh McClellan Poetry Series by McGill-Queen's University Press, and available right here at our souvenir table, so don't forget to pick up a copy. Tanya, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here. Little nervous. I think that is the. Are you hearing me? I'm going to have to stand close. I think of this book as. I feel like this should be a little lower. Do you think so? I think so.
Not the tech guy, but.
Well, much appreciated.
I actually sprayed my thumb, so
Oh no! I'm so sorry.
let's do this.
Yeah, and then it. Okay. I think so. Is that better? Yeah? Okay. All right. I'll probably. Yeah, that's not going to be good though, because I'm going to need both hands. Okay. All right. Let's try this. Oh, where was I? So I think of this book as a collage of stories about a place and people that belong to it. And that place was a farm. Is a farm about an hour and a half to our south. I'm going to start with the first two poems of the book that set the scene, I think. The first is called Ebony Jewel Wing, and that is a small dragonfly. Our mother tongue did not have a word for how the river wore away the stone without meaning to, for the shadows made when August fell through the leaves, for the dirt, the taste of it that home was built on, for the one small handful of words that make a stranger not a stranger, for the shattered emerald body of the ebony jewel wing, born only a fortnight past, for the memory of a memory, for how we long to come to a full stop that is not death. And the second is the house. What lived in the walls left arms to hang in a resignation, hemmed by the rustling calico. The sill was scattered with the wire legs of flies, but in May by the door were newborn shoots of sumac. I skinned their velvet stems, leaving only the skeleton. In the distance was a figure no one could name. 2 black willows remained after the hurricane, one arched back in its declension, a hand receiving its pasture. Under a simmering parasol, a threshold of trees, wetted wood, a pall of leaves, witness bearers. Even our road was like that. I'd like to redo the epigraph because I feel like an epigraph is something that you can't look for. It finds you, and it can only be 2 things. It can be perfect or perfectly useless, and this came in the very last phases, and I was lucky to find it. It seemed really just right. Tell me how much you know of the sufferings of your fellow men, and I will tell you how much you have loved them. Helmut Tillich was a German theologian. This one is called Wedding Pictures. Oops, that one's not called. Okay. They are stuck behind the peeling sound of rotting cellophane. 2 pictures of the handsome couple signing their names, heavy pens in their hands. She is 19 in an apricot eyelet dress, his hair longer than I remember, his 11 more years captured in the shot. And you want to reach in, knock those weighted pens from their hands, light a fire under the card table draped with a lace cloth, any minor distraction that allows them to flee, to run and never look back. But it cannot be altered. A course has been set, profiles locked in a cameo, the color of the dress, dreams turned to face the back of the frame, wallpapered over, erased with flower paste. They must sign a vow that she will not study art, that he will not begin his own garage. Damn the pen that flows with ease, the ink being my blood. I bind them, saying yes to being born with no apologies. An only child, she does not leave her home. He will be added on, a weak weld at best, a town kid on a farm where mixing blood comes with a price, an X marking the spot at the edge of the field where the house trailer will sit. The calendar on the wall by the phone will change many times, while the heart sputters to start like a flooded engine. The clock is patient. It will take a long time before the rod is finally thrown, piercing through the block. There is no happy ending, and how it was all there to see, in the stiff bend of their arms, the angle they had held the pen. They did not see it frame by frame, the endless unraveling, but they saw the brick wall the car was bound for. They heard the sound of cellophane, the peeling of tires, but still hoped the held-down horn outside the hall. Outside the hall festooned with garland might be for someone else. Follow that with a short, sweet one, of which there are not too many in this book. It's called One for Fred. For some reason, it's one of my favorites. Old Fred, one of a throng of haphazard visitors, to pull into the yard out of the blue to pay respects and offered a lowball from a 40-ounce of Gordon's. Old Fred with a guitar he was born playing and never left home without, with a beer in one hand and a smoke stuck in the first fret. Old Fred who never heard a fly, no less a flea, with a voice like gravel under a rusty Buick rolling nice and slow. Old Fred who had a garage beside his house on a back road to nowhere and worked cheap for any poor bastard needing a patch job or a well to hold, at least for now. One might ask, why write a poem about Fred? My answer is because no one else in this world is ever going to. So there's a thread that runs through these poems of a relationship between a girl and her grandfather. And we'll read you one on that. It finds itself near the end of the book. It's called Doorbell. That year, someone had cut down the hydrangeas, as never should be done, and no cream-colored flowers flanked either side of the steps where we sat and watched the end of summer play its games. By the round white rock flecked with mica, under the green front door bell that rang a perfect ding-dong. Things inside you were failing. They took you away and brought you back. Again and again that year, you changed. I saw each change remove you. Yet when you saw me in the garden through the summer kitchen window in my new rummage sale straw hat, you said, next year, let's put 5 rows of the green beans next to the peas. Absence, the taking away, is a language that cannot be learned. The house that held you from the beginning knew no more what to do with itself than I did when it heard. The eastern sun was still the same for a time, coming up over the woods, but for days the wind took anything untethered for a joyride through the yard. Faithful to the seasons is that echo, coming up like water from the ground. A gust in the night that will not settle, caught in the chambers of a flue. I think about that round white rock flecked with mica, so long gone now, no one remembers it but me, and how the perfect ding-dong of the green front doorbell is whorled in a two-note helix with some filament of my brain, but gone as though it never was, is the way you said my name. And I'll finish with a shortish poem that's timely. It's called Sugaring. Now that we are in that season where sap is running and waters of life are flowing again. 100-year-old maples joined in a ring around our house, roots grown through the wall of our cellar of the deep stone well, the yawling prisoner cat, cellar of revenants, wraiths, and chains, stories they would tell at night to cure anyone of sleep. In March, up from the earth, by some magical ancient osmosis, with a faint taste of bananas, sap rose with steady drips, overflowing our galvanized buckets from a hole bored in the pulpy layers with a red-handled bitstock. How sealed within a case we are as children, before words let us out. How dusk deepens, pressing into the belly as though day would take us with it. All day I shattered layers of pond ice with a stick, releasing more and more to the stream. The glass music lost and found until I could not feel my hands. Wood smoke wound with our syrup, made its way west to the hills. A winter's end offering to forgotten gods who watched us but never intervened. Gods whom by then had abandoned all of them but me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanya. I loved how you said that waters of life are flowing again in this season. It's very inspirational. Someone was making fun of me for our spring issue imagery, having snow and people in parkas. I was like, it comes out in March, we're just being real, okay? And speaking of being real, I want to welcome our next reader, Tracey Lindeman. Give it up. Tracey is Montreal-born.
Brand new out of the box. Is this okay?
Well, you tell me.
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Tracey and I know each other from way back in the trenches of alternative media.
Montreal Mirror.
Yeah. Can we get any love for that?
No? Nobody remembers?
Tracey is, her work has appeared in The Guardian, The Atlantic, Al Jazeera, Maclean's, The Walrus, The Globe and Mail, and many other publications, including the Montreal Mirror. She's from Montreal, currently based in Western Quebec, and her new book is Bleed. It's very exciting. When Eve Thomas pitched me the article, she said, it's the most, we got to write about it. It's the most infuriating book of the year, which I have to say is kind of true.
Good.
I'll let Tracey, take it from here. Thank you so much for being here, Tracey.
Yeah, thank you. Wow. Tanya's reading was so relaxing, and now this is a real tone shift. So I hope you're ready. This is my first reading ever. So hopefully not the last. So I'm just going to read a little bit of the prologue, and I guess I'll take it from here. I'll probably use my hands a lot. So, have you ever been told that the pain you feel is imaginary? That the mental anguish you experience from being trapped in a cycle of feeling bad and then feeling bad about feeling bad could be solved with a better attitude and a brisk walk? Or have you tried yoga, meditation, eating probiotic yogurt, drinking unicorn blood on a full moon? Perhaps you just need to get off your phone, get out into nature, get into woodworking, go on a vision quest, maybe learn to crochet or take up archery or create YouTube makeup tutorials. I hear Kegels help. Get that pelvic floor into fighting shape. When you have an invisible disease like endometriosis, you hear versions of this all the time. Your friends will tell you they get cramps too. Your partner will tell you to relax. Your doctor will suggest hormonal birth control to tame the pain and the bleeding, and then antidepressants to control the depressive side effects of the birth control. And then, when your libido is sufficiently annihilated by the antidepressants, they will simply shrug and ask, "Have you tried losing weight?" This is death by a million paper cuts, little barbs of misogyny meant to undermine your suffering and shut you up. No one wants to hear about the feeling of daggers being plunged into your abdomen and twisted around. No one wants to know how sad, how lonely, how angry you are, not only about being sick, but about how your doctors won't do more than the barest of minimums to help you be a little less sick. You are an island. There are, according to the World Health Organization, 190 million islands on this planet, people with endometriosis. The real figure is probably double that. About 10% of people assigned female at birth are said to experience the disease, and there are about 4 billion of us in the world. Some people don't know they have it, others know they have it, but haven't persuaded the right people to give them a diagnosis. In North America and much of the westernized world, people spend an average of 7 to 10 years from the onset of symptoms, but 7 to 10 years of actively and persistently lobbying doctors to try and figure out what's wrong with them. As such, the average age at diagnosis is somewhere around 28. So what exactly is endometriosis? In the simplest of terms, it's a disease defined by the growth of endometrial-like tissue outside of the uterus. These growths are called endometriomas, lesions, adhesions. They attach to ovaries, fallopian tubes, and the exterior of the uterus, as well as the bowel, and sometimes as far away as the kidneys, the diaphragm, the lungs, and in rare cases, the brain. For some people, it's as if a bottle of glue was poured into their abdomen. As the glue hardens, organs become stuck together. In an overwhelming majority of cases, the disease is marked by chronic pain and inflammation, infertility, and long, heavy menstrual periods. Migraines, digestion problems, and sexual dysfunction, including painful orgasms, are also common. Endometriosis can occur in anyone born with a uterus and in a microscopic handful of people born without one. It's true, there are cis men with endometriosis. There is no cure. Worse, there's not even scientific consensus on how it's caused or how it operates. That said, some researchers suspect the disease has genetic and epigenetic foundations, the latter meaning changes in gene functioning, expression that don't change our DNA sequence, with strong links to hormonal and autoimmune functioning. All this, and still, endometriosis is overwhelmingly treated like a bad period by the people in our lives, by the medical system that's meant to treat us, and by those who create the policies and the laws that shape and perpetuate this misunderstanding. This isn't a coincidence. It is systemic disregard for our lives. Endometriosis was first described in literature nearly 4,000 years ago and was officially named in the mid-1920s. Birth control was first approved for the treatment of endometriosis in 1957. And well, not much has happened since then when it comes to treatments. We're told to take birth control and hope for the best, or maybe get pregnant. I hear it's a cure. I've heard that many times. This inertia exists at the same time that mere fractions of per capita pennies are going to publicly funded endometriosis research, if a nation funds research on endo at all. Instead, the pharmaceutical industry has become both the biggest funder and the biggest profiteer of endo research. Drug makers are collectively taking in billions off the backs of desperate endometriosis patients, and too many physicians are allowing it to happen. Some are even enthusiastically enabling it by accepting consulting fees, travel, drinks, and dinner from drug companies, a widespread practice that has proven to influence the prescribing practices of doctors. Meanwhile, surgical experts and patient advocates are left to piss in the wind, trying to get medical colleges to recognize excision and not drugs as the real gold standard of care. Endometriosis isn't the only disease that yields so much systemic mistreatment. Another 1/10 of people assigned female at birth have polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS, or hormonal disorder that often causes pain and infertility. 1/4 of us have pelvic floor disorders. 1 in 3 experience pain during sex. Did you know that sex is not supposed to hurt? Unless, of course, you want it to. There are so many of us, and yet patients feel alone, each of us toiling away in our own bubbles while trying to understand why no one seems to care. Even those who develop fatal diseases get alienated when those diseases are coded female. Cervical cancer is becoming increasingly common, killing 342,000 globally in 2020 alone. Mortality is highest in places with high poverty rates and insufficient screening for HPV, the viral infection known to cause cervical cancer that is most commonly transmitted through sex acts. Americans living in high poverty areas are twice as likely to die from cervical cancer than those in low poverty areas. Even as a place where pap smears and HPV vaccines have been routinized, the US and Canada are home to massive health inequities that worsen outcomes for a lot of people. For instance, white patients with cervical cancer have a 5-year survival rate of 71%, while Black patients have a 58% survival rate. Rural Black cervical cancer patients have even slimmer chances of surviving. Do the dismal math on all this, and it becomes clear we are being given care by a system that fundamentally does not care about us. That's not to say that there aren't some very nice, responsible, ethical doctors out there. There are, but they are operating within a system that is rotten to the core, and having good actors in a bad system is not good enough. Unfortunately, we can't dismantle systems merely by knowing how they work. Instead, we learn to circumvent them. So many people who've been through the medical ringer know this to be true, that systemic reform is a dream, and that making do is the reality. That's why we do our own research and become internet scientists, trying to make sense of academic journalese on endometriosis. And as we search, we discover there's a community out there, online groups and pages and endo influencers and hashtags, turning upwards of 400 million people, lonely islands, into archipelagos, united in our grief and our frustration. That wasn't the end of the sentence. Learning from each other what we haven't been taught by the medical system. This information is critical, and the method of delivery can reach, all of which are consequences of systemic and cultural forces pushing us to our limits. In this way, it's also a social disease. In Bleed, I've attempted to weave together the histories and modern realities of female subjugation, hysteria, and power imbalances in healthcare to show how the system came to be. There are no self-help tricks here. We have for too long carried the burden of helping ourselves because no one else will. Consider this an evidence file, proof that amid all the stories people love to hear about bootstrapping personal triumph over chronic illness, we are in reality set up to fail. And then just one last thing. Bleed is heavy, and it deals with a lot of things we don't often say out loud. It's difficult, but I promise you it's worth it. We deserve to be heard and to tell our stories without feeling like we have to protect other people from the truth. As sufferers of sick bodies and sick systems, it is easy to find ourselves in the high seas of hopelessness. Sometimes it takes everything we have just to keep our heads above water. But if this book makes you angry, I urge you to hold on to that feeling. Anger is a power plant that can generate energy that spurs us to action. You can use it to make a difference, if not for yourself, then for someone else. This is my difference.
Thank you so much, Tracey. I gotta say, for a first reading ever, pretty powerful, right? I want to mention that although Tracey was kind enough to join us at this event, the official launch for Bleed in Montreal is on Tuesday at Turbo House. 5 à 7. Tell all your friends Don't miss it. And tell your friends in Ottawa to come out on Monday for the reading there. Thank you so much, Tracey. So as you all know, the MRB and ALAC, our core mandate is to support English language publishers, authors, illustrators, and translators here in Quebec. But like Blue Met, we also like to bridge the communities. We don't just cover Anglo culture. We cover a lot of translation as well. And for tonight, we thought it would be cool to try something new and do a reading of a translation. We have a very exciting book. We cover a lot of exciting books in this issue, but our next feature is the new book by Gabrielle Boulianne-Tremblay, a writer, actor, model, and trans activist. Her new book, Dandelion Daughter, is the English language translation of her novel La Fille d'elle-même, which won the 2022 Prix des Librairies. And it was translated by none other than Eli Tareq El Bechelany-Lynch, author of Not Body, shortlisted for a QWF award, and The Good Arabs, which won the 2022 Grand Prix du Livre de Montréal. So we have some prize-winning authors here tonight, people. I'd like to invite them up to do is it for the first time ever, maybe Kim or Ian could say, interlinguistic reading of this exciting book. Gabrielle, Eli, welcome.
Okay. I think it's perfect. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me, MRB, for this special event, special reading for me. Writing La Fille d'elle-même was a big adventure for me, as it took 15 years to go through the process. So I'm really excited. That's the only thing that makes me stand up. So I'm proud to have literature to help me. Thank you. So, je vais parler en français pour cet extrait, et puis Eli va faire le même extrait en anglais, comme ça on va pouvoir voir c'est quoi un peu la magie de la traduction d'une langue à l'autre. Maman change le disque. C'est Nana Mouskouri, édition de Noël, qui roucoule dans les aigus perchés des rossignols. « Mais voyons, Émilie, c'est bien kitsch, là! » se plaint quelqu'un. « Ouais, mais nous donc du Elvis, » dit un autre. Maman ne les écoute pas et ils finissent par oublier qu'ils n'aiment pas sa musique. Ça continue de rire. On se conjugue à un party comme on peut. Je suis la seule qui n'a pas ça dans le ventre, ce rire-là. J'attends le téléphone de mon père. Il avait promis qu'il appellerait. Je me demande comment il danse avec l'autre. Est-ce qu'il la chatouille dans les côtes comme il le faisait avec maman avant l'orage? Je me demande pourquoi on s'aime si c'est pour se détester après. Et je me dis déjà à cet âge-là, aussi bien ne rien avoir pour être sûr de ne rien perdre. Olivier a les cheveux lichés avec le gel de papa, un oubli dans la pharmacie de la salle de bain. Il sent mon père et je le déteste de me ramener à son souvenir. Regardez-le donc qui essaie de grandir trop vite. Puisque c'est Olivier, je ne le bousculerai pas dans l'escalier. Parfois, quand je suis tannée de monter et descendre les marches, je m'assois de biais sur la rampe et je glisse. Alors, je me sens comme Mary Poppins, festive le temps de la glissade. Quand je pose mes pieds sur le sol, la gravité me revient. Une fois dans la soirée, je rate ma dernière marche et revole contre le mur en étouffant ma plainte. Je ne regarde pas si je suis blessée. Je regarde plutôt si quelqu'un m'a vue. Parce que c'est ça qui fait plus mal. Maman sort le champagne, en tout cas quelque chose qui ressemble à ça. Elle et ses amis crient fort, on n'entend presque plus Nana Mouskouri. Le chum de Michel a failli m'écraser le pied avec ses gros souliers noirs cirés. Il ne m'avait pas vue parce que j'étais à quatre pattes. Il se retournait et s'est confondu en excuses. L'attention m'a fait un velours. J'arrive à la hauteur de tous les nombris. Je pourrais leur souffler dedans si j'étais de bonne humeur. Je retournerais dehors si mon habit de neige n'était pas mouillé ou si mes anges avaient fini de pleurer comme des pas d'allure. Maman est encore plus pompette. Ses joues sont plus rouges que son fard qui sent bon. Elle se promène avec un plateau. « Champagne, fort, bière, anything, anytime, it's party! » On dirait qu'elle a fait ça toute sa vie. Ce qui est le cas en quelque sorte, sauf que d'habitude, ce n'est pas de l'alcool, mais des pilules qu'elle transporte sur un plateau. Une rumeur se répand qu'il y aura un Père Noël ce soir, pour Olivier et moi et tous les adultes qui ne veulent pas grandir, tous les Peter Pan de ce monde qui pourraient bien brûler si ça ne tenait qu'à moi. Je déroberai le briquet dans la poche droite du petit manteau de cuir de Michel que je suis allée porter sur le lit tout à l'heure. J'aime que le feu danse. Tous les gens devraient partir dans le froid de décembre sans rien sur le dos. Olivier me regarde. Il sait que je prépare un mauvais coup. Ça me désamorce sur le champ. J'annule mon plan. Et si Mathias était là, ce serait plus simple. Il ferait semblant d'avoir une crise cardiaque ou une allergie au saumon et le feu naîtrait en douce dans la chambre de ma mère. Tout ça, je le note dans ma tête. Mathias n'en reviendra pas de mon imagination. Il me vénérera. Je serai sa reine, pour qui il fera tous les coups pas possibles du monde. Maman a failli tomber avec le plateau dans les mains. Je la pensais plus solide sur ses petites jambes d'oiseau. Faudrait que tu ailles t'étendre un peu, ma belle. On n'a pas encore mangé, recommande Bernard. Le Père Noël s'en vient après souper. T'as pas oublié, j'espère? Je regarde son nez rouge qui me fait penser à Rodolphe, le petit renne au nez rouge. Ça me fait rire dans ma salopette aux petits boutons rouges à 4 trous, des faux boutons. Comme ça, ils ne tomberont jamais. On ne les perdra pas non plus dans les craques du divan, en dessous du siège de la voiture, ni dans l'aspirateur. Les toilettes sont toujours occupées. Et j'aimerais aller pisser dehors. Pour une fois, pisser debout. Écrire mon nom dans la neige, mais j'ai peur que ça me gèle de mon pénis jusqu'à mon cœur. Je me retiens. Le Père Noël s'en vient de toute façon. J'aurai droit à des cadeaux, mais je n'ai pas été sage. En tout cas, moi, je le sais. Mais personne dans la pièce ne sait que je serais prête à mettre le feu à la maison. Et j'imagine que mon sort de protection mentale me dissimule au regard vif du Père Noël, qui scrute les agissements de tous les enfants du monde. On cogne à la porte. Mon verre de jus d'orange, je n'ai pas droit au punch, évidemment, tremble dans mes mains. Le Père Noël entre. Tout le monde arrête de parler avant de s'exclamer en chœur « Le voilà !» Et je veux juste le cadeau qu'il a pour moi dans sa poche remplie à bord. On l'acclame comme si c'était Joe Dassin. Mais il ne revient pas d'Europe. Il n'a jamais réussi à attendrir mon cœur et il ne m'amène pas mon père. « Va te placer pas loin du sapin, là, ça va être ton tour bientôt », m'ordonne ma mère. Le sapin qui a des boulons verts, je me balancerais dedans si les gens pouvaient se tasser. Je vole un œuf farci dans l'assiette de quelqu'un que je ne connais pas pour ensuite l'engouffrer en 1 seconde. Et si tous mes problèmes pouvaient disparaître ainsi? Le gars à qui j'ai volé l'œuf se demande où il est passé. Je suis comme la musique punk de Michel, enregistre sur ses cassettes avec son chum, des fois. Sauf que moi, j'ai pas de stop. Il faudrait que j'aille aux toilettes, mais mon jus d'orange englouti trop vite pèse sur ma vessie. Au moment où je décide d'y aller, on m'appelle sur les genoux du Père Noël. Les Kodaks sont sortis, on veut voir de quoi ça a l'air, quelqu'un qui croit encore à quelque chose. Et j'ai l'impression de jouer dans un documentaire sur la tristesse. Je me force pour sourire. Il pue la cigarette. Papa ne m'a toujours pas appelé. On cherche mon cadeau pendant d'éternelles minutes dans le sac. Pendant ce temps, je remarque que le Père Noël sent plutôt le cigare de Bernard. Il a les mêmes yeux que lui. Je m'approche de son oreille. « Je sais que c'est toi, Bernard. » Il ouvre grand les yeux. Surpris d'être démasqué, je lui souris. Les fourberies, c'est réservé aux adultes. Je comprends que je viens d'entrer dans le monde des adultes bien malgré moi et que dorénavant, on ne pourra plus m'en passer. J'en éprouve du dédain, Voir Bernard dans sa déconfiture, ça me fait sourire. Ma mère le remarque. Personne ne sait ce que je fais. Même pas Bernard. Je souris encore plus, tellement que ma mère se garoche sur son Polaroid afin d'immortaliser le moment. Le flash retentit dans la maison. Je souris maintenant avec les dents. À cause de l'épaisseur du costume, Bernard ne sait pas encore que je suis en train de vider tout le contenu de ma vessie sur sa cuisse. Merci.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to be reading the same, I was going to say extrait, passage as Gabrielle, but in English. She was like, you should pick the passage that we're going to read. And I really like smart kids in books, and Gabrielle did such a good job writing this child. And so I was like, I think everyone should get to see her when, in this moment. And for you who don't understand French, I won't spoil the reveal. Yeah, it's really great. It's my first time reading from the translation. It's really exciting to see this beautiful book. And it was a real honor for Gabrielle to trust me with her book. As an author, I'm like, oh my God, trusting someone with your baby, So I feel really honored, and it's really nice to get to read together. So I'm going to start. I wait for my dad's phone call. He promised he would call. I wonder how he dances with that other woman. Does he tickle her sides like he did with Mom before the storm? I wonder why we love each other if it just leads to hate afterwards. Even at this age, I tell myself, it's better to have nothing so you have nothing to lose. Olivier's hair is slicked back with Dad's gel. He forgot it in the medicine cabinet in the bathroom. He smells like my dad, and I hate him for reminding me of him. Look at him trying to grow up too quickly. Because it's Olivier, I won't shove him on the staircase. Sometimes when I'm sick of going up and down the stairs, I sit at an angle on the banister and slide down. It makes me feel like Mary Poppins, happy for the duration of the slide. When I put my feet on the ground, I regain my balance. One time in the evening, I missed the last step and flew back against the wall, stifling a groan. I didn't check to see if I was injured. Instead, I checked if someone saw me, because that's what would hurt most. Mom takes out the champagne, something that looks like it in any case. She and her friends yell loudly, and we almost can't hear Nana Mouskouri anymore. Michel's boyfriend almost crushes my foot with his large wax black shoes. He didn't see me because I was on all fours. He turned around and apologized profusely. I was flattered by the attention. I reach everyone's belly buttons. I would blow into them if I were in a better mood. I would go back outside if my snowsuit wasn't wet or if my angels would stop crying senselessly. Mom is even more tipsy. Her cheeks are redder than her nice-smelling blush. She walks around with a tray. Champagne, hard liquor, beer, anything, anytime, it's party. It's like she's done this her whole life, which is sort of the case, except usually it's pills rather than alcohol she's serving on a tray. A rumor circulates that Santa is coming this evening for Olivier and me and all the adults who don't want to grow up, all of the Peter Pans of this world who might burn if it were up to me only. I would take Michel's lighter from the right pocket of her little leather coat, which was dropped off on the bed earlier. I would set fire to all the coats. I like that fire dances. All of the guests would have to leave in December cold with nothing on their backs. Olivier looks at me. He knows I'm planning a dirty trick. It disarms me on the spot. I cancel my plans. If Mathias were here, it would be easier. He would pretend to have a heart attack or be allergic to salmon, and the fire would slyly come alive in my mom's room. All this I noted in my head. Mathias wouldn't be able to believe I was so imaginative. He would idolize me. I would be his queen, the one for whom he would do the impossible. Mom always follows with a tray in her hands. I thought she was more solid on her little bird legs. You should go lay down a bit, my love. We haven't eaten yet, recommends Bernard. Santa's showing up after supper. You didn't forget, I hope. I look at her red nose that makes me think of Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. In my overalls with the little red buttons that have 4 holes each, I laugh. Fake buttons, that way they'll never fall off. I won't lose them down the cracks in the couch, under the seat of the car, or in the vacuum. The bathrooms are constantly occupied. I'd like to go pee outside, for once pee standing up, write my name in the snow, but I'm worried that I'll freeze from my penis up to my heart. I hold it in. Santa's coming anyway. I'll get some presents. I wasn't good. In any case, I know it, but no one in the room knows I was ready to set the house on fire. I imagine that my mental protection spell will conceal me from Santa's keen eyes, which scrutinize the actions of all the kids in the world. There's a knock on the door. My orange juice, I'm obviously not allowed to have any punch, trembles in my hands. Santa enters the room. Everyone stops talking before screaming in chorus, "There he is!" I only see the gift he has for me in his overflowing pouch. Everyone applauds like he's Joe Dassin, but he hasn't come back from Europe. He hasn't succeeded in softening my heart, and he hasn't brought back my dad. Go stand beside the tree. It'll be your turn soon, orders my mom. I'll fall into the tree with the glass balls if the others don't move over. I steal a deviled egg off the plate of someone I don't know so I can devour it within seconds. If only all my problems could disappear that way. The guy whose egg I stole is wondering where it went. I'm like the punk music Michelle records onto tapes with her boyfriend sometimes, except I don't have a stop button. I need to go to the bathroom. The orange juice I swallowed too quickly is putting pressure on my bladder. The second I decide to go, I'm called to sit on Santa's lap. The cameras are out. They want to see what someone who still believes in something looks like. I feel like I'm in a documentary about sadness. I force myself to smile. He smells like cigarettes. Dad still hasn't called me. They look for my present in the bag for an eternity. During this time, I notice that Santa smells kind of like Bernard's cigars. He even has the same eyes as him. I whisper in his ear, "I know it's you, Bernard." His eyes widen, surprised at being discovered. I smile at him. Deception is reserved for adults. I realized I've just joined the adult world despite myself, and from now on, they won't be able to trick me. It makes me feel disdained. Seeing Bernard uncomfortable makes me smile. My mom notices. No one knows what I'm doing, not even Bernard. I smile even wider, so much so that my mom hurries to get her Polaroid to immortalize the moment. The flash resounds in the house. Now I'm smiling with teeth. Because of the costume's thickness, Bernard doesn't yet know that I'm emptying the entire contents of my bladder onto his lap. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gabrielle and Eli. So exciting. So be sure to pick up a copy of Dandelion Daughter over at our souvenir table. We don't have much time, but I do want to invite all of our authors up. Sorry, I maybe should have said that before you went back to the... if there are any questions, Tanya, Tracey, come on up. Our audience needs to know some things. Well, Tanya, since you're on your way up, I'll ask the first question to you. I just wanted to know, your book, you grew up in the Eastern Townships, and your book very beautifully evokes a lot of the landscapes and the atmosphere there, and you're based there now. So my question is, what is it about the townships that's so, that generates and nurtures English language poets so much?
Oh, well, I really don't even know if I can answer that question. I do know that for me, a sense of home was something that was always really profound for me. It may be that the landscape is, it's just forgiving, I think. It's full of stories. Where I grew up, the particular farm I grew up on was in my family for many generations, and I think that's the case with a lot of places in the township. So, I think just really things are steeped in story, and I think we sense that. I think we feel it, even if we don't know these things with our minds. That's part of it. It's a great question to think about that a little more.
Thank you. My next question is for Tracey, and it's a little more of a prosaic question, perhaps, which is just, I love that you titled all the chapters in your book after famous punk rock songs, and I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about how you came up with that idea.
Because it's all I listen to. No. I think I started going to punk rock shows as a teenager, and Salle de l'Ix, if anyone remembers. They used to let people under 18 in there. It was allowed, okay? Yeah, it was all ages on the ground floor, 18 plus upstairs. But yeah, I think punk rock really informed a lot of my values and my thoughts about the world, I think, and this idea that you can fight for better, that you can fight the system, that you can burn the system down. I think that's really where it came from. And so, I thought a long time about which songs I wanted to reference, and they weren't necessarily my favorite songs, but they all kind of fit the theme of each chapter, and so that's the Easter egg for all the punk rockers out there.
Nice. My next question's for Gabrielle and Eli, and you said it was your first translation, Eli, so I'm just curious if you could tell us all a little bit about how that came about.
Yeah, so Dimitri Nasrallah in the crowd reached out to me asking if I was interested in translation, and that there was this book by Gabrielle, and that they both thought of me and wanted to see if I was interested in translating. And it had been something that I was interested in doing, and it kind of just came up at the right moment. I had time to do it, and so when I read Gabrielle's book to see if I could do it, and I was really excited and connected with the book, and so I took on the translation. And yeah, it's kind of interesting because I keep telling people who ask me about translating that it's like a jigsaw puzzle. You're kind of trying to put things in different places, and you choose a word and you're like, this one doesn't quite fit, and you're just kind of trying to move things around. And I feel like my brain kind of works that way, I'm always trying to figure things out. And so translation really worked for me in that way. And so it was really fun to try to take the lyrical, very lyrical words and work of Gabrielle, and to try to bring that to life. And as a poet, it's something I already think about, so it was a really nice thing to be doing.
Nice. I wanted to open up the floor. We have a question over here.
Yeah, Eli, my question is this your first translation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Question is it your first translation? Yeah. Any other questions from the people here? Don't hesitate, because
How much did you and Gabrielle work together?
so the question is, how much did you, Eli, and Gabrielle work together on the translation?
It was a fun process for me because it was my first translation, work of translation. We met by Zoom, I think, once, and it was an instant connection. The Wi-Fi was good. So we just enjoyed the fact that we're both coming from the community, the LGBTQ community, and I think it was a great fit for that. And I learned about letting go, like a lot, because, you know, like I worked this book like 14 times, I think, in French. So I needed to let it go and trust, like in being in a trust mindset. And what I found interesting, it was like crossing the mirror, like, because I really discovered a new book. Like even if it's the same story, it's like a new approach, because I'm a French speaker, so it's really interesting to discover that. And I think you did a great job.
Anyone? Any more questions from our folks gathered here? Emma? We have a question from someone watching from home. Thank you for watching. So the question is for Tanya: does being a visual artist influence your poetry?
Yes, I'm sure it does. I know it does. I tend to think very visually, and I don't think I can really separate word from image in a way. It seems like a word is a feeling and an image put together, and so yeah, very much. I would say very much, probably more than I know.
Thank you. Don't hesitate, folks. We're if you miss the opportunity here, you'll regret it for a lifetime. Okay, well, if there aren't any more questions, I'll ask a few more. Tracey, I wanted to ask you about, we've talked before, even tonight, of just about, the book being filled with this angry energy, and I was curious, was that hard for you to sustain throughout the whole process?
You really don't understand how much I've been through. 24 years. No, I mean, I don't think like the whole book is angry, but it's definitely like kind of the underlying theme. But I think it's because a lot of people with endo are just so used to being cast aside, thrown away, and like they're angry too, and like it's just this like sense of injustice. Like it's not fair. It shouldn't be like this. Why is it like this? Why is it like this? And that's kind of like the vibe I was going for. And I mean, like on my book's Instagram, like I've been connecting with people with endo around the world. And they're like a lot of people, including people I interviewed for the book, they're like, I feel seen. Like I actually feel like someone understands what I'm going through. Because they're angry too, and they're fed up. So I think that's it's angry, yes, but like we have a right to be mad.
For sure. And you talk about this in the book, but I have to confess I was quite unfamiliar with the condition before reading your book. But since reading it, just even talking with people in my life, you find out, oh, this person has it, this person has some variation.
Everybody knows somebody.
Yeah.
Everyone knows someone, at least one person with this condition.
Mm-hmm.
Like 400 million people, and we're treated like we're freaks. Like, how is that normal?
Yeah. Feel free to speak up or raise your hand at any point, folks. You talked about the joys of working together, and I loved hearing the two versions of the excerpt. What were the challenges of this translation?
I think for me, when I read the book, I was like, oh, this is an interesting challenge, because in French is a gendered language, right? And then in English, there's no gendered, obviously parts of English can be gendered, but you don't gender adjectives, you don't add gender to the ends of verbs, and there's just you can make the language more gender neutral quite easily. And usually a lot of talk within the queer community and the trans community is, and especially from francophones, is is feeling upset by how gendered French is, especially for people who are non-binary, who want to use gender-neutral language for themselves and are having a hard time finding ways to do so. And then, so I've kind of heard that a lot. And then, but then with Gabrielle's main character, throughout the book as a child, she's gendering herself female while everyone else is misgendering her. And I thought that was a really powerful tool of the book. And for the first time, I was like, damn, I actually want the gender part. I was like, how do I do that? And so I kind of was like doing a bunch of research to try to figure out how people might do this, how to translate that into the book without having it feel clunky and have her kind of like be waving a flag, being like, I'm a girl. You know, in French, it's more subtle. And it's more, it like was really, it's like an empowering moment for her as a kid, you know, to be thinking of herself the way that she feels. And so that was something that I kind of toyed around with a bunch and kind of found little solutions along the way. Nothing specific came out. I just had to toy with the language a bunch.
And how about for you, Gabrielle? What were challenging parts of it for you?
I think I already told about the letting go part. For me, it was because I found like this is a whole new world opening for the translation and translating something that was gendered. Like for me, I think it was the same challenges. So I don't think I can add some more.
Anyone, or any questions from folks gathered here or any of the folks watching from home? Okay, I got one more for Tanya. Tanya, you partly dedicate, I think, the book to your grandfather, and there's a lot of poems talking about your relationship with him. But I also noted in this dedication that he died in 1996. So I was wondering what happened. What was the process between then and now to write about him in your work?
Well, I think that those years from birth to 21 were he was. I think I was 20 when he died, and there were a lot of years after that, but I knew that my first book would be that, and so it was there all along, really. I think not that the poems were written, but it just seemed like really there for the writing, like it was really on the surface for me, and writing it, it had this really freeing effect. And now, I've just got a zillion more books to write, but that was really. It was really natural the way it came about that way. It was really there for the writing for a long time.
Nice. All right, folks, I'm going to give you one more chance to ask questions, whether you're gathered here or watching from home. Well, Rebecca? So
I'm
the
a very
question
funny
is,
person.
for those watching at home, or who might have missed it, the question was it hard to be entertaining and engaging while talking about this heavy topic? And Tracey reminded us that she's a very funny person.
It's true. What I want to add, though, is that actually a lot of people with endo are hysterical. Like, they're very funny people because they've been through so much stuff that you have to have a sense of humor about it, because otherwise you're just miserable. So it's like, I had a lot of fun jokes about like bodily functions, and like, we were talking about like one of the drugs that gets prescribed to people with endo. It's called Lupron, and like it's an injectable drug. So like once you're injected with it, like you can't stop it from. And I was like, it's like an edible that gets away from you, and you're just like, oh my God, it's happening. We a lot of little jokes like that, and I think we just have to do it to keep ourselves sane.
Well, I want to thank you all so much for being here tonight and sharing your work with us. Don't forget to go to our table over here, pick up a copy of Tracey Lindeman's Bleed, Gabrielle Boulianne-Tremblay's Dandelion Daughter, translated by Eli L. Bechelany-Lynch, and The House You Were Born In by Tanya Standish McIntyre. Thank you all so much for being here and for tuning in at home. Thanks, everyone, and thank you so much. I think Dan wants to get a group photo of our authors together.